Hi, my name is Jake. Now let's talk music. Now, I know what you might be thinking, seeing me sitting here doing this. Like, I am back. Now, there is gonna be a different version of me going forward. One, there will be less frequent uploads. Two, I when I first got into making YouTube videos, I always wanted to do it because of my passion for music, and I wanted to put the best product out there for people to see. So I also wanted to take a high step in quality because I'm gonna face it myself. A lot of the videos I had been making were not the best quality, not a lot of editing, didn't look the best, didn't sound the best. And I just didn't feel like I truly understood how to get my point across about the music. I feel like I didn't do enough research and I didn't go into that much detail. I was just skimming around the surface, but I truly feel like that is not what I wanted to do when I decided to make YouTube videos. So I decided I needed to take a break. Now, I also had other things going on in life, like a lot of stuff that I won't get into right now. But one key thing was I wanted to just step away from that, reevaluate what I was doing with my life, and now I'm back. Like I said, less frequent uploading, but when I do upload, it is going to be the utmost quality that I can do by myself. Like, I don't have the best setup. I have a pretty good microphone, I'll say that, but I'm only recording on a laptop camera, so it's not going to look the best, but I gotta do the best with what I have. And for a long time, I just mass uploaded, not caring about the quality. And I'm sorry about that. But from now on, I'm going to be making good quality videos. Now, a lot of them probably will be much longer videos because of that, because I'm going to be deep diving into more info. But at the same time, I feel like it is a disservice to the watcher, well, the viewer, if I don't take this serious. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way. But what we are here to talk about is Balloonerism. And I know it was released in January and it's March. Actually, the day that I'm recording this, well, it's March 8th, almost March 9th. I'm recording this around 12 o'clock at night. But, yeah, it took way too long for this album. But I did say it would be this album that I would do for my next video. Another album that I will be talking about is Hurry Up Tomorrow, even though that also came out in January. But there's a lot to unravel there. So, yeah, we're here to talk about Mac Miller and Balloonerism. And one thing I wanted to do, I wanted to bring in a little bit of background info about Mac before I actually talked about Balloonerism. So, Mac Miller, aka Malcolm McCormick, that's what it was, Malcolm McCormick, was born on January 19th of 1992, and he was born in the city of Pittsburgh, which he was very proud of that. Like, you hear him mention that on so many songs, especially in a lot of his early projects like Kids. on the song Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza. Yeah, he was really proud of where he grew up, and he even, on his debut album, Blue Slide Park, talked about one of the places that he used to hang up at when he was growing up. But speaking of growing up, when Mac was growing up, he was always captivated by music. I mean, by the age of 6, he had already learned how to play the piano, the guitar, the drums, and bass. Heck, I'm 18, about to turn 19, and I still don't know how to play any instruments. Like, there was a stint where I wanted to learn how to play piano because there was a piano in my dorm room. I went down there, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna teach myself how to play. Get down there, I try to play the thing's broken. I'm like, well, that sucks. Like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna teach myself how to do this, and piano is just broken, and it's like, whatever, man. But yeah, just thinking about the fact that he was 6 years old and knew how to play all of those instruments was just insane to me. But even though he had a passion for music, he didn't know like how he wanted to go like into that. He knew that it was something that he wanted to do and might even have that become his profession. But he was like, he didn't know whether it would be pop or a different style of music. And what he landed on, obviously, was rap. But it would take him until he turned 14 to be like, you know what, I want to become a rapper. This is what I want to do. And that's what he did do at the age of 14. He spent his high school years furthering his rap career. But he wouldn't officially enter the rap game with a project until 2007. And it wasn't under Mac Miller. At that time, he didn't go by that. He went by Easy Mac. And his first project, which was a mixtape, I haven't ever listened to it, but it's called But My Mackin' Ain't Easy. And I mean, it looks like it might be half decent, but this is like 15-year-old Mac Miller like on this project, which I think is insane. Like at the age of 15, you're already making mixtapes. Insane. But yeah, he would do a couple of different mixtapes, but his true breakout year was 2010 with his mixtape Kids. Like, he was known around the Pittsburgh area, but Kids really put him on the map. And in that following year, he would release his debut album, Blue Slide Park, which it debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and was the first independently distributed debut album to do that since 1995. I forget who it was that did that before, but since 1995, nobody had done that except for Mac, which was insane. Fast forward a couple of years, I mean, he had put out several mixtapes and several albums. Actually, no, just one album, but several mixtapes. You get to 2014, which this was the year when Balloonerism was created. But there was other albums that were created in this time span. Like, before he had even worked on Balloonerism, he dropped his, like, honestly, to his fans, his best piece of work, which was his mixtape Faces. And by the whole music industry, it is regarded as one of the best mixtapes of all time. It just felt like, dang, 2014 is really going to be his year. He starts off with this amazing mixtape, and it's like he's going to keep going, and he did. After he put out Faces, he started working on Balloonerism, which I'll get more into that later. And then after he finished Balloonerism, he made Good AM, which he decided, instead of putting out Balloonerism, he was like, I'm going to show this for right now, but I'm going to come back to it and release Good AM as his third studio album. Which, I do agree with his thinking at that point. Because Balloonerism, I don't know if it would have connected with his audience at that time, because it was, like, very different from anything that had came out before by him. Like, a lot of production done by him that was very different from what he had done before. And also just what was talked about within that album, like the existentialism and everything that I'll get into later. Whereas Good AM, it felt like he was moving forward in his life. Like he was starting to get over like these vices that he had in his life, and that he was waking up to a good morning, and that everything was gonna turn out great for him. And I mean, he would continue this project up with honestly one of his happiest projects, and it was the love derived album, The Divine Feminine, which I think a lot of it has to be with the fact that he was with Ariana Grande at this time. It felt like those two together were like the perfect match, and that they could really last. Which it didn't end up lasting because Mac would relapse. But this was the time frame where it seemed that Mac was the happiest in his life. But after that, you obviously have Swimming that comes out in 2018. And then, honestly, I still remember the day that the news came out about this. On September 7th of 2018, Mac Miller was pronounced dead at the age of 26. I remember just seeing that headline on the news. Like, at the time, I didn't know who he was. I mean, 2018, I was either in 6th grade or 7th grade. Honestly, probably 7th grade in 2018. But at that time, I wasn't a big rap person or a big music person. I was just like, I seen the name Mac Miller, and I was like, just the fact that someone had died, I was like, oh, that's really sad. Like, I didn't know who the person was at the time, but now that I know who that is, it's like, I wish that I would have listened to his music while he was still alive. I wish I would have had the chance to see him in person while he was still alive, but sometimes things just don't work out that way, you know? And it's really sad. But, yeah, he had died from a drug overdose at his home in San Bernardino Valley. And what had happened was he was just trying to buy oxycodone. I don't know the name of the drugs. But what it was, the drug dealer sold him the wrong drugs, and the drugs were laced with fentanyl, which was the reason why he died. I think now the people who sold him the drugs, I know they're in jail. I don't know how long they're in jail, but I know that he got he got justice, which that was just the best thing to see. You know, he he had a lot of problems in his life, but that doesn't mean he had to die. Just because someone decided to give him lace drugs. I sometimes I just sit when I'm listening to his music and I think, where could he have went if he was still alive? Like, I think he really could have went down as one of the best to ever do it. I mean, he still is one of the best to ever do it, but I mean, like, one of the top people. It's just sad to think about, you know? On that same day, he was actually supposed to go and record a music video for the album. And also, he was getting ready to leave for the swimming tour. It's like, it just felt so weird to like see him cut down right in the prime of his life. I mean, 26 years old, man. It's just really sad to think about. It truly is. But uh, after his death, everything went to his parents, which I will refer to them as his estate, just because it's easier to say than his parents and his family. It's just easier to say his estate. But everything is controlled by them, and every decision after his death with his music came through them. But after his death, his estate had decided to keep releasing music in his honor, because he has thousands of songs that are still unreleased to this day, and it's like insane. So we first got the first posthumous album release in January 2020 with the album Circles, which still to this day I have a really hard time listening to that album, just because you go from Swimming and then you listen to Circles and it's like you truly see how hard he was dealing with all of these things. Like how hard everything truly was for him. And mix that with the fact that he had just recently died, and it's like it's a tough listen every single time. But yeah, Mac already had a lot of the album done because he finished Swimming and then he started working on Circles immediately because he wanted it to be a companion album to Swimming, so it could form the phrase Swimming in Circles. I mean, we've seen this before by, well, Drake. He did that with his 4 album run. That's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah. And then earlier this year, his estate would release his second posthumous album, Balloonerism. So yeah, that's all the backstory. And that was like 20 minutes. Jeez. Yeah. Balloonerism was created in a 2-week time period in March that many called Mac's Jam Session. The excuse me. The album would be created completely in the Sanctuary, which that was the name of Mac's studio, which was in his house, and so many artists created music there, including Anderson .Paak, Vince Staples, Earl Sweatshirt, like all those people, which a lot of those people were featured on Faces, which it just showed how close he was with those people. There was a level of trust there, and It showed in both the music they made together and the fact that he would let them come over and use the sanctuary at any time. Another name that the sanctuary goes by is the Red Room, but most people know it by the sanctuary. Um, and even though Balloonerism was shelved for Good AM, Mac was always very fond of this album. He told Josh Berg about this, which I mentioned him earlier, I think. I might be wrong, but I also think I did. He was the main engineer for this album, so yeah. But Mac told Josh Berg that if he did die prematurely, that this album should be released. And it took a couple of years of convincing with Mac's estate, but it ended up happening, and now we have this album. And I'm very thankful for Josh Berg to get that out. The album's release was first announced at 2024's Camp Flognaw Festival. There was like a little video teaser where it showed the album cover and gave a date. Wait, did it give an official date or did it just say 2025? I know it at least said that it was coming in 2025. Before the album was officially released, Mac's Estate would put out the full track list, and the only single that came off of this album, which was $5 Pony Rides, which all this got released on January 9th. I remember because I was still here from, what's it called? Winter break. I was actually downstairs folding clothes, and I was just like scrolling through Instagram, and I've seen on 92 Till Infinity, which that's like the Instagram page that Mac's Estate has to give all the news about Mac. And I just see, oh my gosh, there's a full track list for the album, and it says in the caption, $5 Pony Rides out now. And I remember just listening to that on loop. I was like, oh my god, this might end up being my favorite album of 2025. And so far, it still is. Nothing has come out that has touched me like this has. Like, this album just means a lot to me. But yeah. So January 9th was when all of these things were released, but the album wouldn't release until a little bit more than a week after. That's what I was trying to get to. And coincidentally, it was the same day as the 5-year anniversary of Circles, the first posthumous album, and it was 2 days before what would have been Mac's 33rd birthday. Within this album, Mac explores concepts about drug use, existentialism, and the shift from adolescence into adulthood. I will get more into that when I do my track by track analysis, starting off with Tambourine Dream. Now, what might just seem like a simple instrumental, there's still a little bit of a background to be known about this track. The tambourine in question is a very notorious item that was in the sanctuary, and you can hear it on so many different songs that were created in the sanctuary. And it's all over this album, which Mac was always fond of the tambourine. I mean, even in his NPR Tiny Desk performance, which he did that a couple of days before he died, you see him using the tambourine. At least I'm pretty sure, either that or I'm losing my mind. But I'm pretty sure he had the tambourine right next to him, and he's just performing a lot of the songs off of Swimming with it. But yeah, there's also a clip that I have of the engineer Josh Berg talking about the tambourine.
The tambourine, y'all should know the tambourine, and it's incredible that nobody's asked this question because that tambourine is in so many songs. It in the booth of the sanctuary. It lived on a music stand that did nothing else but hold the tambourine in the headphones. So many people like Mikey Wright, like fucking tambourine at the beginning of Malibu. You know, like it's the tambourine. You know, like it's just in there always, and you know, Lord knows what fucking possessed this dude to just go on a fucking frolic with it, but he certainly did. I think it was like I think that $5 pony rides and transformations were actually all in the same session for some reason. That doesn't usually happen. But it's an edited down version of a much longer, incredible, life-changing tambourine performance.
Is that the same tambourine in Angel Dust?
Every single song that has a tambourine, it's that tambourine that was done from the Sanctuary era. You know, like people are knocking it over, like it's like that, and eventually the door was like coming off its hinges, and like you would hear it go, and most of the time it had delay on it. Those are like the Sanctuary sounds. You can always pick them out. Go have fun with those.
The next track is DJ's chord organ. Instead of deciding to rap on this track, Mac, he decided to pretty much put on his producer hat, which, one thing I want to talk about while I'm saying here, he goes by the moniker Larry Fisherman when he does a lot of production, which, I mean, it's Mac Miller, but he goes by Larry Fisherman whenever he produces tracks. And he actually also released an EP under the name Larry Fisherman, which was pretty good. It was like a jazz rap concept, kind of. It was really good. It's called You. It's actually on Spotify. I would recommend listening to that. But this, to me, is one of the best produced tracks off of the album. Hands down. But there's Mac, he doesn't have a verse. He just comes in at the very end, just repeating the same phrase over and over. The lone verse on this actual song is from SZA, but this isn't SOS or Control SZA. This is back when she made her first project, Z SZA, which she had a vastly different style back then. And honestly, heading into this album, I didn't know Mac and SZA were friends back then. But it turns out he actually produced 2 of the songs off of Z and would perform live with her. I forget where it was. It was at, I remember it was a Red Bull concert type of thing. I know it was a concert thing sponsored by Red Bull. That's what I remember. But yeah, I don't really have like a deeper meaning from this song to like really explore and talk about. I always just loved listening to this for the production. It's an enjoyable listen, even though there's no real like point where Max starts rapping on it. Up next is the track Do You Have a Destination? One person I didn't talk about when it comes to production, one of the key people on this album is Thundercat, who has a lot of co-producer credits on several of the tracks. And whenever you hear someone playing the bass throughout this album, it is Thundercat. He is one of the most talented bass players I have ever heard, and it shines throughout this track list. So I wanted to give a shout out to him. But on this track, Mac deep dives into the topics of feeling lost, and he truly feels like he has nothing to hold on to, and that there's nothing in this life that'll make him happy. And it just feels like he has no hope. Like, it's honestly a very sad track where it's like he first deep dives into the idea of existentialism. That's a hard word to say, man. But yeah, it was the first track where you really like see him deep dive into the fact of he feels like nothing makes him happy and nothing really matters. I mean, he also continues like this uh these thoughts onto the next track, $5 Pony Rides, which, like I talked about, was the only single, which, even though it has like this like lighthearted tone with the production, it's still like when you look at the lyrics, you just see that he's talking about still some pretty sad stuff, trying to figure out a way out of all these problems that are going on within his life. I mean, to me, that's just really sad to think about, that he has these problems, but he doesn't know how to solve them or how to get away from them. I have the breakdown of this song on my phone. Friendly Hallucinations is the next track. In the song, Mac explores the ideas of truly trying to escape reality. And he's talking about this through the use of drugs, which up to this point in his career, everyone knew that he was a big alcoholic, a big drug addict. I mean, there's no good way of saying it. He was addicted to different drugs, and it sucks to say it, but it's the truth. But he talks about this girl who tries to escape reality through taking these drugs, and also the fact that there are the people surrounding this girl who think that she's crazy and that she'll be okay if she just goes to see a shrink. You know, they just think she's crazy, but it isn't that she's crazy. It's just that she is so depressed and so it's so hard for her to stay in reality and live through this life that she has to take these drugs. It and it's just to drown out the pain and sorrow. I mean, to me, that's just really sad to think about. That life is so bad that the only way to escape it is to drown yourself in either alcohol or drugs. I mean, let me just say this. Alcohol is also a drug. It is addicting, and it can really mess with your self, like the person you are. But yeah, it's just really sad to see. But I mean, on the next song, it's the same thing, talking about well, the track is called Miss Deborah Downer. You hear all throughout the talk about drug use to help escape reality and all the problems that are going on in life. And this is a really sad album. A lot of the production makes it seem like it's not as sad as it truly is, but it really can hit you to your core just sitting there and listening to it. Yeah. The next track, Stone, it's talking about a girl who goes through her daily life and just like she wakes up and she can't deal with life sober, so she takes drugs immediately, and it helps her go through her day without these problems that she would normally have. And it's like it's just trying to escape reality by getting stoned. That's really what these three tracks really talk about, is the escapism of reality through drug use. Then there's the next track, Shangri-La. Mac talks about both paying his drug dealer with a credit card, which it just felt really random within this song, especially with the title and knowing what Shangri-La is. I mean, Shangri-La is the studio that Rick Rubin he bought and had been using for a long time. I don't know if he still is, like when I'm sitting here thinking about it, but I know that Mac used to go there to both talk with Rick Rubin, create music, and it felt like a way for him to get away from his drug use and his alcohol like usage. He would go there to truly like meditate and take in the advice of someone like Rick Rubin. And for a long time it worked. I mean, he would, around that time, that's when he stopped taking drugs, stopped drinking, and that's when he got with Ariana, which eventually he would relapse, but this was like the one point in his life where everything was starting to look up. Like, he was getting over these addictions and had thought that he found the one for him. But like I said, he does end up relapsing, and it does eventually lead to his death. This upcoming song, it is both my favorite and it's the hardest to listen to at the same time. Just because of like one line that is said in this song. It's like, but the next song is Funny Papers. When I think about this song, it's like, this is an amazing song that was created, yet at the same time, it's like really sad when you think about what happened to Mac. Because one of the lines within the song says, I didn't think anyone died on a Friday, yet the day that Mac had died was on a Friday. And it's just like, that symbolism really just, it, when you hear that for the first time, it's like, wow. When I sit here and listen to this for the first time and knowing all the facts about his death, it's really sad. But that's not the only thing within this song. So, to begin the song, honestly, every time I hear this part, it kind of makes me like smile and laugh because it's just so silly and something that Mac would do. Like, to begin the song, you just hear Mac mimicking a British accent, asking you why you don't know how to dance. It's just like, it is something so silly, but it you just know that that was his personality. He did a lot of silly things, and it just made me happy to hear that, you know? It's why, like, every time I listen to this song, I just have a little smile on my face. Like, even though it's sad, it's still, that little bit right there just, like, still makes me happy. But enough about, like, my experiences Uh, as the song goes on, Mac starts talking about like different stories about people in the various age stages in life, such as this baby being born, and also a man crashing out after a divorce. Like all these different things, but at different periods in their life. And that's when he first starts talking about going from adolescence to adulthood, which he dives more into that on Excelsior. I mean, on this track, it's like super simple, but so effective when you think about what the message is he's trying to convey. I mean, he starts off by talking about orphan kids that are playing on the playground, and then starts talking about himself and his experiences as a child. And he talks about where at one point in his life, his worst enemy was spinach and Brussels sprouts. Also, he talked about how when he was growing up, the one thing he wanted to become was a wizard, which is where the title Excelsior comes from. I mean, it's so simple yet so effective when you're thinking about the point he's trying to convey. The next song, Transformations. When I was talking about Larry Fisherman earlier, about how that's one of Mac Miller's monikers, another one is Delusional Thomas, which it's Mac Miller with a pitched up voice, but this moniker it's kind of like something that Tyler the Creator does. It's like a personality of his. But this personality of Mac is a serial killer. Which, it's weird, but yeah. Honestly, I would say probably this is one of my least favorite tracks, just because it doesn't feel like it goes with the album that much. It kind of feels a little bit out of place compared to the rest of the album, but I don't hate it. It's not a bad song. It's just if I were to pick one track that I wasn't the greatest fan of, it would be this one. Next track, Mannequins. This is like really the turning point in the album to me, where it's like it really takes a very tonal shift here. I mean, here it's like at points you're like getting like, even though it's like sad, there are still bright spots within. But this is just like, it feels like everything goes downhill right here. And it's like a very pessimistic track, always talking about dying. Heroism is so close to heroin. And it's like, it just like seems like there is no bright side within this track. It's just, honestly, the brightest thing about this track is the production. I mean, you hear this harp over and over and over, and it would feel like what would be said on this would be something more angelic, but this is just such a dark song talking about death all the time, and it's like he feels like there is no hope, and it feels like he is slipping further and further away until he's just dead. And it's really sad. It's like, this was the one track that for a long time I just didn't understand why it felt so weird within the track list, especially at the point where it's at, because the very next song it feels so optimistic. But yeah, I just don't understand the placing of it here. But if they did this to where Mac Miller would have wanted it, you know? So I still, it's still a little bit of a head scratcher to me, but I understand it. Next song, Rick's Piano. Like I was just talking about, this feels so much more optimistic because over and over you hear the best is yet to come. Yet it's like you just had this whole song where you talk about dying over and over. Yet you're saying on here the best is yet to come. It just feels really weird, you know? But I'm not gonna question the way it was supposed to be made because I wasn't there. And if that's the way that he wanted it done, that's the way he had it done. And then you get into the final track, Tomorrow We'll Never Know. Even though the one track is very dark lyrics wise, this is another really dark track. But I feel this to me is the darkest track because, at least with the other song, the production seemed like angelic. This is just like, it feels like you're drowning. Like you are slowly fading into an abyss that you can't get out of when you listen to this song. And this song, I would say, pairs best with the movie, which I'll get to in a little bit. But you hear Mac, like, going through a crossroads in his life as he's talking to God, like, to try and figure out what he's supposed to do in his life, like, where he's supposed to go. And he's talking to God this whole time, and then it fades to just where there is this nonstop ringing of a phone that nobody answers, and then you just hear children laughing like they're on a playground, and it's just one of the most, like, worst ways. No, not worse. It just feels like one of the darkest ways to end an album, because you're just left with this ringing where nobody answers. So it feels like you're still down in this abyss with no hope. Yeah, this track to me is definitely the darkest. But yeah, that right there is the full album. And let me just say, I love it. Like, even though it is so sad, it just feels like I could connect with it so easily. Like, I don't take drugs, I don't take alcohol, I don't do any of that stuff. Yet, the existentialism and, like, I'm at the point where I am becoming an adult now. It's like these topics are really hitting me when you get down to the main point of them. Like, yes, like one of the surface levels things, one of the surface level topics is about alcohol and about drugs. But when you dig deeper, it's just like the fact that it is scary going from this childhood where we had nothing to worry about to where we're adults now, and we're either getting a job or we're going and moving out from this home that we've been for the whole duration of our life. It's scary, you know? But everyone has to do it, and you have to figure out the best way to do everything. Like, personally, I still call this my home. I still have this place to come back to. But my main thing that I'm doing right now is college. Right now I'm on spring break. That's why I'm here doing this. But I'm still having to adult. Like, I can't act like a kid anymore. And it's sometimes sad to think about, but at the same time, I'm excited, you know? It's both scary and exciting at the same time. But I still love it. But yeah, like I was talking about earlier, there was a movie that also went along with this album, the Balloonerism movie, which that is on Amazon Prime. I recommend checking it out. It just like it gives a visual representation of this album, and it's also a pretty short runtime of only like 25 minutes. So yeah, I would check it out. But when it comes down to this album, oh, one thing I didn't talk about, the new ranking thing I wanted to do. I think I'll talk about that more in my next video. We're coming up on an hour of recording, so I'll save that for a later time. But yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna give this album on the new scale that I'll talk about in my next video. I think this is an amazing album. Like, it's not quite perfect, but it's not so low that it's great. I feel like it's at the perfect middle ground of between perfect and great, which is amazing. Like, the grading doesn't make sense right now, but I'll explain it more in the future video. But yeah, to me, this is an amazing album. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really all I have left to say for this album. I mean, I had a great experience with this album. I've listened to it several times, and it's like, each time it just seems to get better, you know? Which I love about an album like this, where every listen, you come out with something new. Like something you didn't hear like the first time or the second time, but third time you're like, oh, I missed this completely. It just feels good to have an album like that. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say. And until next time, peace.